In Munich's post-war silence, a different kind of weapon began to hum. Hidden behind ordinary walls, insulated so that words would not escape prematurely, engineers and exiles toiled long hours to build transmitters and string antenna wires above snow-frosted roofs. This was no military unit, yet inside, the air pulsed with the quiet purpose of a clandestine battle. The city, recovering from devastation, became the unlikely cradle of a voice that would haunt the rulers of Eastern Europe for decades. Radio Free Europe wasn't a state, a party, or an army. It was a collection of broadcasters, journalists, and translators, many themselves refugees with accents still trembling from recent flight. Their aim was simple and therefore revolutionary: speak the truth across closed borders. In Warsaw and Budapest, in Prague and Bucharest, millions lived behind the Iron Curtain. There, every bookshelf was censored, every newspaper carefully rewritten, every conversation at risk from informers. The world itself seemed surrounded by walls, the physical ones of borders, and the more suffocating ones of official narrative. Yet into bedrooms late at night, through battered old radios half hidden in cupboards, came uninvited voices. News, music, debates, laughter, stories the official press would never print. For the Soviet leadership, this was an attack, not with bombs, but with information and possibility. Their retort was technological. Massive jamming towers ringed the capitals, pouring endless static through the frequencies, creating what they called protective silence. For every hour that Radio Free Europe found a new way through, the Ministry of Communications spent another to block it. Authorities confiscated suspicious radios and ordered citizens, again and again, not to listen. Yet, night after night, the listeners returned. Sometimes in groups, sometimes alone, they wrapped antenna wires around radiator pipes, listened with the volume so low only the bravest dared to try. For children, the radio was forbidden fruit, the thrill dampened only by the warning glances of parents. For older people, tuning in became a habit, a way to measure inside their own homes just how far the world really stretched. The station's bulletins became signals in themselves. Where state-run stations repeated the same victories and grain quotas, these broadcasts brought word of protests, inflation, and changes sniffed on the wind. Ordinary voices called in, often in code or in nervous bursts, to share what they had seen. The Polish shipyard strikes, the Hungarian uprisings, Soviet crackdowns, such events spread by rumor, but here they were described, analyzed, echoed back and forth. In time, listeners understood that their anger, their doubts, were not isolated. Around them, thousands, perhaps millions, felt the same. And for a totalitarian system built on fear and the illusion of unanimity, that realization was dangerous. Fear, once exposed as common, began to feel less binding. Radio Free Europe's funding sources, at first disguised, were later revealed to include significant American intelligence support. In the Soviet view, every broadcast became proof of Western subversion. But ideology could not erase impact. What mattered was that people living lives under repression learned, in their own language, what the world thought, what their neighbor had risked, and what hope still existed. For some, the knowledge changed nothing. For others, it offered quiet purpose. For a few, it sparked the energy that would, years later, lead masses into the streets or right up to the walls. When the wall fell, it was not with a cannon's thunder but with the sound of feet and voices, and perhaps the faint, remembered echo of a signal that had crossed borders with no passport. The war had not been won in a day or a shout, but in countless unseen victories. In this fight, the most dangerous weapon was not an army, but an idea set loose on the air.